Dr. Kim Toffoletti is a senior lecturer in sociology and gender studies at Deakin University in Melbourne. Her research interests span the fields of gender studies, visual arts, social and cultural theory. She's published articles in a number of Australian and international journals on a range of topics including the representation of gender and sexuality in the media and popular culture, women fans of Australian rules football, and gender and sport. Kim has worked with the Sydney Swans Women's Advisory Group to produce a report providing recommendations on how gender-based policies and initiatives can overcome the dominance of men in sport. The findings of this research have been showcased at international conferences such as the World Congress of Sport Sociology and the North American Society for the Sociology of Sport Conference, and at national forums including the Australian Sociological Association and Australian Women's and Gender Studies Association Conference. Kim is the author of the scholarly monographs Cyborgs and Barbie Dolls, Feminism, Popular Culture and the Post-Human Body, and Bollywood Reframed. Currently, she's co-editing a book on female sports fans across the globe, titled Sport and Its Female Fans, will be published in 2011. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kim Toffoletti.
Thanks, Jess, for your comprehensive welcome. I feel you know me all so intimately now after that. It really is an honour to be asked to deliver this lecture and continue Pamela's legacy in highlighting issues of real concern for Australian women. The fact that this lecture is still going strong after 20 years is testament, I think, to its importance in advocating for more equitable relations between men and women. It's also a reminder of the currency and necessity of feminist thinking and activism to addressing persistent gender inequalities. So, we find ourselves at the start of another football season in Australia, and yet again another footballer has been charged with rape. This time, it's Andrew Lovett, recently recruited to the St Kilda AFL club from rival team Essendon. It's not the first time that St Kilda has been embroiled in these type of allegations. In 2004, 2 of its players were accused of sexual assault. No charges were ever laid, but the incident has no doubt stuck in the minds of many Australians for bringing to the fore a darker side of football that had, up until that point, rarely been spoken about publicly or been given such prominent media coverage. In the past, clubs paid hush money to complainants in return for their silence. More recently, women are coming forward, speaking to police and media about their ordeals. According to research by Deb Watson at Monash University, of the reported cases of alleged sexual assault since 1998, none have resulted in a conviction. My own searches have not yet revealed a footballer of any code who has been convicted for raping a woman while playing at the elite level in Australia. Let's stop and think about this for a moment. In the 100 or so years that Australian rules, rugby league, rugby union and soccer have existed in this country, under Australian law, there is no widely known case of an elite footballer having raped or sexually assaulted a woman. If, as the football chiefs often remind us, football is just like any other part of Australian culture and faces the same problems and issues, then why is it that rape does not seem to feature in this microcosm of society? Sure, they concede that some footballers, like some men, don't treat women well. But over such a long history, it seems an anomaly that rarely, if ever, has a footballer been held accountable under law for raping a woman. This fact is surely not lost on women who have been sexually assaulted by footballers. The lack of convictions of players in the past is likely to put women off coming forward and reporting sexual assault. Why would they bother if the only thing to come from reporting is a whole lot of media scrutiny? Or indeed, accusations that they are actively courting public attention and a slice of media fame for speaking out against the violence perpetrated against them. National data shows that only 14 to 16% of women report violent sexual incidents to authorities, and only a very small percentage of these complaints result in convictions. These figures, it seems, do not include elite footballers. Only weeks before the AFL scandal broke back in 2004, news broke that some members of NRL team, the Canterbury Bulldogs, had been accused of pack raping a woman at a Coffs Harbour resort. As with the St Kilda case, no footballer was ever charged, but the issue of group sex keeps coming back to haunt the code, as witnessed by the public outrage over the ABC Four Corners episode Code of Silence. The program, which aired last year, revealed a group sex encounter that occurred in 2002 in New Zealand, involving players from NRL club, the Cronulla Sharks. But the issue here is not just about sexual assault, whether it did or didn't occur, whether the woman involved did or didn't consent, and what can or can't be proven. A litany of other events over the past 10 years have revealed a fundamental disrespect and disregard for women across the footballing codes. And it's this general attitude toward women that I'll be exploring in tonight's lecture. I'm glad to hear other people coughing because I've got that too. So apologies for the deep husky thing because this isn't usually me. The most recent case in point involves the AFL's Brendan Favola taking a naked photo of his then lover, well-known model Lara Bingle, and supposedly circulating it without her consent via his mobile phone. Reports of the incident, which occurred a few years ago, but has only come to light in the past couple of days, overshadowed the announcement of an initiative by the federal government and the AFL to promote respectful relationships between young people. Launched by the Minister for the Status of Women, Tanya Plibersek, it sent a confused message. At the very moment the Australian Football League is being promoted as a role model for young people, granted $400,000 to bring its Respect and Responsibility program to junior football clubs, one of its best-known players is implicated in behaviour that isn't respectful, in which a picture of a woman's naked body is being passed around between men for their own sexual gratification and amusement. If this is the kind of behaviour footballers model to young people, then we should be concerned. The phenomenon of sexting is on the rise amongst Australian teens. It involves taking photos on a mobile phone of yourself or others naked or involved in sexual activity and circulating these pictures via text message. More often than not, it is young women who bear the social stigma of having intimate photos of themselves circulated widely and instantly via electronic networks. I've heard that boys take photos of girls giving them blowjobs without the girls knowing, which the boys then send around to their friends. Sometimes girls take photos of themselves naked and send them to their boyfriend's phone for his eyes only, thinking this makes them attractive, sexy and cool. But if he then forwards it to his social circle at the push of a button, she is likely to be labelled a slut and a whore. Sexting has potentially grave legal implications for young people too. By forwarding sexually explicit pictures of minors, young people risk being charged with the distribution of child pornography, even though they may only be children themselves. I agree that building respectful and positive relationships, both sexual and non-sexual, between men and women must start at an early age. But it needs credible role models. If football codes want to be leaders in fostering equitable relations between women and men, players aren't the only role models they should be promoting. Sporting organisations must look at the underrepresentation of women at senior and decision-making levels. Perhaps by modelling themselves as social institutions where women are present and visible in positions of power and authority, there will be greater respect for women within footballing communities and beyond. I'll be coming back to this point more later. Now, the reason why I'm raising these various cases of footballers behaving badly is to remind you that they're not just one-off events. They've been happening for a long time and they continue to happen. Nor is it only footballers who commit sexual violence against women. Research done in North America shows similar patterns of violence and abusive behaviour towards women from sportsmen involved in male-dominated, often team-oriented sports like ice hockey, American football, and college athletics. What we are talking about here is a phenomenon that is much bigger than football in Australia. It is also bigger than the sporting domain. All different kinds of men perpetuate sexual violence against women, and many men don't, footballers included. So what is it about our national football culture that warrants particular scrutiny? So before I go any further, I'd better lay my cards on the table. Let me fess up, I am a lover of sport. Growing up with three brothers, I had little choice but to get in there and kick the football and swing the cricket bat. Like many of the women I know personally, and many of the women I've interviewed for my research, my introduction to sport was through boys and men. Throughout my childhood and into my early adulthood, I played basketball in my local suburban competition, albeit without much finesse. Today, my sporting pursuits are confined to a social hit of the tennis ball and a weekly Pilates class. But the value of sport for health, self-esteem, and sheer physical enjoyment isn't lost on me. I enjoy sport in other ways that go beyond exercise and fitness. Watching sport, whether it's on television or going to live matches or attending an event like the Australian Open Tennis, offers a fantastic spectacle and a chance for time out from the weekly grind. It gives me a sense of being part of a tribe, a group of people who feel the same way I do. Since birth, I've followed Aussie rules as a Hawks supporter. With the advent of the national soccer competition, the A-League, I took to following the Melbourne Victory. 6 months living in New Zealand saw me adopt the Canterbury Crusaders as my rugby union team of choice. Regularly, I'd sit in icy conditions of an evening watching them play, even though I'd never followed rugby at all before then. For me, sport not only provides a sense of community and identity, it also offers a connection to family. It gives me a chance to spend some one-on-one time with me old dad as we go to dinner, followed by a soccer game. Some of you here tonight might feel the same way and have had similar experiences. others less so. Regardless, most of us here, I imagine, would agree that participation in sport should offer something positive to women and men on a number of levels: physically, emotionally, and socially. And by participation, I don't just mean playing sport. Participation can involve spectating or being involved in your local sporting club or association at an administrative or support level. Each of these aspects of sports participation can be enriching and rewarding for the people and communities involved. Going on 2006 figures from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, always got to have some statistics, 10.5 million Australians over the age of 15 participate in some form of physical exercise. 7.1 million, or 44% of the population, attended at least one sporting event in the year prior to being surveyed. And 11% of Australians volunteer at sport and recreation organisations. Clearly, sport is an important part of so many people's lives. For this reason, it should strive to be inclusive, equitable and accessible to everyone. Women and men of all ages, nationalities, ethnic backgrounds and levels of ability should feel safe, respected and welcome when participating in sport, whether it be as president of the local lawn bowls club, as an umpire officiating in elite level sport, as a competitor or a spectator. Sports people play an important role in sending that message. Australia has a strong history of celebrating its sporting heroes, most of whom have been traditionally male. In an age of celebrity culture and 24/7 media exposure, this appears to be truer now than ever. Their successes are writ large, but so are their failures. Living in the public eye, their actions and words count. Footballers who demean or sexually assault women not only brutalise their victims. Their behaviour sends a message that women don't deserve respect, that treating women as sex objects is okay, and that by getting away with it, footballers are not held accountable under the law. Excuse me. On being invited to give this lecture, I was encouraged to explore my own ideas about those aspects of life as a woman that I feel particularly passionate about. I feel passionate about the issue of violence against women by sportsmen because as a lifelong supporter of Aussie rules and a feminist, I find myself asking how I, as a woman, can support a code whose players have mistreated women. Back in 2004, when I first heard those reports alleging that footballers from the Canterbury Bulldogs had gang-raped a woman, I rolled my eyes, thinking to myself, typical bunch of bullhead thugs. While finding it absolutely abhorrent, sadly and embarrassingly, I didn't find it shocking or particularly surprising. I'd always thought of NRL as a blokey boys' club with little regard for women. Hence, it had never held much appeal for me. But when only weeks later a female complainant contacted police to inform them that she'd been sexually assaulted by players from my own code, a code with more female supporters than NRL, ARU or the A-League, a code that had always appeared to me to be female-friendly, I was forced to confront my own feelings about being part of a footballing culture that fostered negative attitudes towards women. This led me to wonder how other female supporters felt. I've looked into these questions, both personally and in my research work. With my colleague Dr. Peter Mewett, we interviewed more than 70 female fans of Australian rules in Sydney, Melbourne, Geelong and Perth. This involves speaking to them in great depth, often for a couple of hours, about their experiences of being football fans. And it was a really pleasurable, wonderful experience to speak to people who are so passionate about that aspect of their lives. In our interviews, which we did with individuals and groups of women who were followers of different clubs, we asked them what they thought of reports of footballer misconduct against women. All of the women we spoke to responded thoughtfully and with great consideration and insight on the issue. All strongly believed that violence against women was abhorrent and wrong and had no part in AFL or any other sport. Many of the women we spoke to felt that football culture and team bonding rituals were important factors in shaping player attitudes towards women. They felt strongly that clubs played a vital role in influencing footballers' actions off the field. Clubs that accepted drinking as part of the team bonding exercise were criticised for fostering bad behaviour. Some fans thought that the leagues and clubs should help players deal with celebrity attention and other trappings of fame. But what also came out of these discussions were some unquestioned assumptions about male and female sexual behaviour. Women who had complained of being assaulted by footballers were often stereotyped as predatory or groupies. Some fans felt that women who claimed to have been assaulted by players may have, consciously or unwittingly, brought this on themselves, courting trouble by accepting a player's advances or initiating sexual relations with a footballer. The underlying belief here is that responsible women don't hang around with footballers, let alone act in sexually forward ways. This way of thinking about the situation puts the responsibility for any potential abuse on the victim by implying that they shouldn't have put themselves in that type of situation. Now, implicit to this mindset is the assumption that incidents of sexual assault can occur when women deviate from the conventions of heterosexual relations that expect them to be passive and sexually available. Women who show an active sexual interest in footballers challenge the common sense perception of male superiority, sexually and socially.